My dear friends, let me start with a truth most people don't want to hear. Some of the best things that ever happened to you felt like a disaster at first. The job you didn't get, the relationship that broke you, the opportunity that slipped through your fingers. You called it failure. You called it bad luck. But what if it was protection? What if it was preparation? What if life wasn't denying you, but designing you? Today, I want you to understand something powerful. Life is never late. It is never early. It is exact. Here are 7 truths that will change the way you see your journey forever. The 5R key point is delay is not denial. You have to understand this in your bones, not just in your mind. There are moments when you knock on a door with full confidence, believing it will open because you worked hard, you prepared, you showed up with honesty. And when it stays closed, something inside you starts to whisper, maybe I'm not good enough. That whisper grows louder with every passing day. But what if the silence you're hearing is not rejection? What if it's construction? Think about a building wrapped in scaffolding. From the outside, it looks messy, unfinished, even abandoned. But inside, careful work is happening. Wires are being set. Foundations are being strengthened. You don't move into a house while the cement is still wet. In the same way, life will not place you in rooms you are not ready to stand in. You see, we live in a world obsessed with speed. Same-day delivery, instant messages, overnight success stories that look like they happened in a week, but were built over a decade. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to measure your worth by how fast things happen for you. If it's not quick, you assume it's wrong. If it's not immediate, you assume it's impossible. But timing is not about urgency, it is about readiness. I once heard about a young man who inherited his father's business at 21. He had the title, the office, the respect. But he did not have the wisdom. Within 2 years, the company collapsed under his decisions. He had access before he had maturity. That was not a blessing. That was a burden disguised as opportunity. Sometimes what you call delay is life protecting you from carrying weight your shoulders cannot yet support. Look back at your own story. There were things you desperately wanted 5 years ago. If you're honest, you're grateful you didn't get some of them. The person you were back then would have handled them differently. Maybe with ego, maybe with fear, maybe with insecurity. Delay gave you perspective. It gave you experience. It gave you humility. Imagine giving a teenager the keys to a high-performance sports car without teaching them how to control speed. The power would excite them, but the lack of control would endanger them. Your dreams are powerful machines. If life is slowing you down, it may be teaching you how to steer. Delay also exposes your motives. When something takes longer than expected, you start asking hard questions. Do I really want this? Am I willing to grow for this? Many people want the spotlight, but not the preparation. They want recognition, but not responsibility. Time tests desire. If you still wake up working toward the same goal after months of silence, that is not obsession. That is alignment. I met a woman who applied to medical school 3 times and was rejected each time. On the 4th attempt, she was accepted. But she told me something powerful. If I had been accepted the first time, I would have quit during the hard years. The rejection made me certain. The delay didn't deny her dream, it purified it. There is also a hidden gift in waiting, it builds emotional muscle. When things don't happen on your timeline, you learn patience. And patience is not passive. It is active strength. It is showing up every day without applause. It is improving when no one is watching. It is choosing discipline over discouragement. Waiting stretches your capacity. It forces you to deal with your doubts instead of escaping them. Think about an athlete training for a marathon. The race is one day. The preparation is months. The body adapts slowly. If the athlete demanded instant endurance, they would injure themselves. Your life is not a sprint. It is endurance training. Delay strengthens the parts of you that success will depend on. You may not see it now, but timing is often about alignment with other people's journeys too. There are conversations you haven't had yet, skills you haven't learned yet, people you haven't met yet. If things happened earlier, the right connections wouldn't be in place. I remember a story of a small town musician who kept missing big auditions. Years later, he met a mentor at a local event who reshaped his style and introduced him to the right producer. He realized that if he had succeeded earlier, he would have built a smaller version of his future. The delay aligned him with something greater. Life is weaving threads you cannot see. Pulling one too early would tangle the design. And here is the hardest part to accept. Sometimes the waiting feels lonely. You watch others move ahead. You celebrate their wins while quietly questioning your own path. In those moments, your faith is tested. But delay is not a verdict on your value. It is a season of development. A seed underground looks lifeless. No applause, no evidence. Yet roots are spreading deep, anchoring for the storm it will one day withstand. If you judge the seed too early, you will miss the miracle. In the same way, judging your life too early creates unnecessary despair. What feels like not yet is not the same as not ever. And if you can hold your ground in the in between, if you can keep working when results are invisible, you will discover that delay was never an enemy. It was the quiet architect of your strength. The second D key point is growth happens in invisible seasons. Most of the important changes in your life will not announce themselves. They will not post updates. They will not give you daily proof. They will happen quietly, beneath the surface, while the world assumes nothing is changing. Think about winter. From the outside, it looks lifeless. Trees are bare. Fields are empty. The air feels still. But under the soil, something is happening. Roots are holding tighter. Nutrients are being stored. The tree is not dead, it is preparing. In the same way, there are seasons in your life when it feels like nothing is moving. No promotion, no breakthrough, no visible reward. But inside you, patience is deepening. Perspective is forming. Emotional strength is settling into your bones. You struggle with invisible seasons because you are trained to value visible results. You want applause. You want evidence. You want signs that your effort is paying off. But real growth does not begin in public. It begins in private. I once met a man who decided to change his temper. For years, he reacted quickly, spoke harshly, and damaged relationships. One day, he committed to pause before speaking. No one noticed at first. There was no celebration. No one said, "You're improving." But every time he chose silence over anger, something shifted inside him. After months, his children felt safer around him. His wife trusted him more. The world saw the outcome later. The real growth happened in quiet, unseen moments when he chose differently. Invisible seasons test your discipline more than your talent. When no one is watching, who are you becoming? When there is no immediate reward, do you still show up? A young woman I heard about wanted to become a writer. She wrote every morning at 5 a.m. before work. For 2 years, no publisher responded. Friends told her to try something more practical. But those mornings were shaping her voice. They were sharpening her thinking. They were building resilience. When her first book was finally accepted, people called it sudden success. They saw the book. They did not see the 700 mornings of doubt, discipline, and invisible progress. The world celebrates the bloom. It rarely respects the buried root. There is a reason growth starts where no one can see it. Visibility can create pressure. Attention can distort intention. When you are growing quietly, you are free to make mistakes without performance. A musician practicing alone in a garage can experiment, fail, adjust, and improve without judgment. But once on stage, every note feels heavy. Invisible seasons give you space to build skill without the weight of spotlight. They protect your development. If everything you were building was exposed too early, opinions would shape it before you had the chance to understand it yourself. Sometimes invisible growth feels uncomfortable because it forces you to confront yourself. When nothing external is changing, you are left alone with your thoughts. Your insecurities surface. Your habits become clear. You realize where you lack patience, where you avoid risk, where you depend too much on approval. That discomfort is part of the season. A friend once told me about losing his job unexpectedly. For months, he couldn't find another. At first, he felt embarrassed, but during that period, he learned skills online, improved his communication, and rebuilt his confidence. He later admitted that if he had immediately found another job, he would have carried the same limitations forward. The pause felt empty, but it was building a stronger version of him. You also need to understand that invisible seasons are not punishment, they are rhythm. Life moves in cycles. Activity and rest, expansion and contraction, speaking and listening. If you try to force constant visible progress, you will exhaust yourself. Even your heart beats in a rhythm of contraction and release. Imagine if it tried to stay expanded all the time. It would fail. In the same way, there are times when you are meant to push outward and times when you are meant to grow inward. The inward seasons are quieter, but they are not less important. They are often the foundation for everything that follows. And during these unseen periods, something subtle is happening. Your identity is shifting. You are not just learning skills, you are becoming someone new. Confidence built slowly is more stable than confidence built on applause. Wisdom formed through reflection is stronger than knowledge gathered quickly. Invisible seasons teach you to trust yourself without constant validation. They teach you to measure progress by integrity instead of attention. When the visible results finally appear, they will not surprise you. You will know they were earned in silence, shaped in patience, and strengthened in moments when it seemed like nothing at all was happening. The THIRD key point is comparison is the enemy of timing. The moment you start comparing your timeline to someone else's, peace quietly leaves the room. It doesn't slam the door. It just fades. You could be perfectly content with your progress, steady in your growth, proud of your effort. Then you scroll. You hear news about someone your age buying a house, getting married, launching a business, traveling the world. And suddenly, what was once enough feels small. Not because it is small, but because you measured it against a different clock. Comparison is subtle. It doesn't shout that you are failing. It whispers that you are behind. But behind whom? There is no universal schedule hanging in the sky that says by 25 you must achieve this, by 30 you must have that. These deadlines are often borrowed, not chosen. They come from family expectations, social media highlights, cultural pressure. And when you live by borrowed timelines, you disconnect from your own rhythm. I once knew two brothers. One became a lawyer at 26, respected and financially stable. The other spent his 20s experimenting with jobs, trying photography, teaching abroad, starting and closing small businesses. Family members constantly compared them. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" they would say. But at 35, the second brother built a creative agency that reflected his unique journey. His path looked slower, but it was richer in experience. His timing was not wrong. It was different. Comparison makes you rush decisions that are not aligned with who you are. You start chasing milestones instead of meaning. You say yes to opportunities because they look impressive, not because they feel right. A woman once shared how she married quickly because all her friends were settling down. She feared being the only one left. Years later, she admitted that she chose companionship over compatibility. The pressure to match others' timelines blinded her intuition. Comparison doesn't just steal joy, it clouds judgment. It pushes you toward lives that look good on the outside but feel heavy on the inside. You must understand that every person carries a different starting point, different responsibilities, different struggles you cannot see. You may compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 10 without realizing it took them years of invisible effort to get there. A man I met started his fitness journey at 40 after years of health issues. He would enter the gym and see young athletes lifting with ease. At first, he felt embarrassed, but over time, he shifted his focus. He stopped competing with their strength and started competing with his past self. In 2 years, his transformation was not about matching others. It was about surpassing who he used to be. That shift changed everything. Progress measured against your own yesterday is empowering. Progress measured against someone else's today is exhausting. There is also a deeper cost to comparison. It weakens gratitude. When you constantly look at what others have achieved, you overlook what you have built. Your friendships, your resilience, the quiet battles you have won. A young teacher once told me she felt stuck because her college friends were earning more in corporate jobs. She questioned her career choice, but when she began writing down the impact she was making in her students' lives, her perspective changed. She realized success is not one-dimensional. Wealth, influence, peace, fulfillment. These come in different forms. Comparison narrows your definition of success until you can only see one version of it. And let's be honest, comparison often comes from insecurity. It reveals the areas where you doubt yourself. When you are confident in your path, others' achievements inspire you instead of threaten you. If someone's success makes you feel smaller, ask yourself why. Is it because you secretly believe there is not enough room for you? Life is not a single lane road where only one car can pass at a time. It is a wide highway with multiple exits and roads. Someone else's speed does not block your destination. Their journey is not stealing your opportunity. Your timing is tied to your growth, your lessons, your readiness. If you force yourself into someone else's pace, you may skip experiences meant to shape you. A tree planted in rocky soil grows differently from one planted in fertile ground. It may grow slower, but its roots often become stronger, gripping tightly against the wind. If that tree compared itself to the one in soft soil, it would feel inadequate. Yet when storms come, its deep roots keep it standing. Your struggles, your delays, your detours are forming a foundation uniquely suited to your life. Comparison distracts you from honoring that design. And when you finally release comparison, something powerful happens. You begin to listen to yourself again. You make decisions based on alignment, not applause. You move with intention instead of anxiety. You celebrate others without shrinking yourself. You understand that life is not a race, but a personal unfolding. The peace that returns when you stop measuring your timeline against others is not passive acceptance. It is active confidence. It is knowing that your path, with all its curves and pauses, is not late. It is yours. The FUYORTH key point is rejection is redirection. Rejection feels personal. It feels like a verdict stamped on your identity. You walk out of an interview room, replaying every word you said. You stare at a message that says, "I've decided to move forward with another candidate," and your chest tightens. It's not just about the opportunity, it's about what it seems to say about you. Not chosen. Not enough. Not this time. But what if rejection is not a statement about your value? What if it is a shift in direction you cannot yet understand? Sometimes you are standing at the wrong door, knocking with full confidence, while the right door is waiting down a different hallway. I once heard about a young man who dreamed of joining a specific company. He admired their culture, their reputation, everything about them. He applied 3 times and was rejected each time. The third rejection crushed him. He felt embarrassed. Friends stopped asking about it because they saw the disappointment in his face. Months later, he accepted a role in a smaller startup, one he had barely considered before. That startup grew rapidly, and within a few years, he was leading a team, shaping strategy, building something meaningful. One evening he admitted, "If that first company had accepted me, I would have stayed small inside a big name. This place forced me to grow." The rejection was not a closed future. It was a redirected one. You see, rejection clears illusions. When something is taken away, you are forced to ask yourself hard questions. Did you want it because it aligned with your purpose? Or because it looked impressive? Did you want that relationship because it felt right? Or because it felt secure? A woman once told me about being left by someone she thought she would marry. She felt broken, humiliated, abandoned. But in the quiet months that followed, she began to notice how much of herself she had shrunk to keep that relationship stable. She had adjusted her dreams, softened her voice, ignored her needs. The rejection did not destroy her, it revealed her. Years later, she said, "Losing him was the first time I met myself." Rejection has a way of stripping away what is not true. There are times when you are rejected because the environment cannot recognize your potential. Not every space is designed for you. A seed planted in the wrong soil will struggle, not because it lacks life, but because the ground cannot support it. I remember a teacher who was constantly criticized in one school. Her methods were called too creative, too unconventional. She began to doubt herself. When she eventually moved to a different school, her style was celebrated. Students flourished under her guidance. The problem was never her ability. It was the environment. Rejection moved her from soil that resisted her growth to soil that nourished it. Rejection also builds clarity. When a door closes, you have two choices. You can stand there, staring at it, hoping it changes its mind, or you can turn around and look at the space you are in. Sometimes rejection forces movement. It pushes you out of comfort. It demands adaptation. A friend once applied for funding for his small business and was denied by multiple investors. Each rejection forced him to refine his idea, strengthen his plan, sharpen his communication. By the time one investor finally said yes, his vision was clearer and stronger than it had ever been. Without rejection, he would have entered the market half prepared. It is important to understand that rejection does not always mean no. Sometimes it means not here. Sometimes it means not this way. Life is not simply blocking you. It is guiding you through a maze you cannot see from above. Imagine walking through a city at night. You take a turn, and the street is closed for construction. You feel frustrated. But if you had continued down that street, you might have walked into danger or delay. The detour feels inconvenient, but it leads you safely to your destination. Rejection is often a detour sign, not a dead end. And there is something else. Rejection gives you resilience. Each time you survive it, you realize you are stronger than you thought. The first rejection may shake you deeply. The second may hurt less. Over time, you stop seeing rejection as proof of inadequacy and start seeing it as feedback, as direction, as protection. You learn not to attach your identity to outcomes. You begin to understand that being turned away from one opportunity does not diminish your worth. It simply adjusts your path. When you shift your perspective like this, rejection loses its power to define you. Instead, it becomes a compass, quietly pointing you towards spaces, people, and purposes that fit the person you are becoming. The FTH key point is pressure prepares you for purpose. Pressure has a way of making you feel cornered. It tightens your chest. It steals your sleep. It makes small problems feel heavy. When responsibilities pile up, when expectations grow, when mistakes feel costly, you begin to wonder if you are built for this. But what if the very weight you are carrying is shaping the strength you will soon need? Think about how steel is formed. It is not left alone in comfort. It is heated, hammered, and refined. The heat does not destroy it, it transforms it. In the same way, pressure is not sent to crush you, it is sent to shape you into someone capable of handling greater responsibility. You might say, but this feels overwhelming. Of course it does. Growth rarely feels gentle. A young nurse once told me about her first year in a busy hospital. Every shift felt intense, decisions had to be made quickly. Lives were in her hands. She went home exhausted, doubting herself. She considered quitting more than once, but something subtle was happening through that pressure. Her instincts sharpened. Her confidence grew. Her compassion deepened. A year later, she realized she was handling situations that once terrified her with calm clarity. The pressure did not disappear. She expanded to meet it. What once felt unbearable became manageable because she had grown stronger under its weight. Pressure reveals your weak spots, but not to embarrass you. It exposes them so you can strengthen them. Imagine lifting weights at the gym. The muscle shakes, it burns. That shaking is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that fibers are being stretched beyond their comfort zone. In life, when pressure makes you uncomfortable, it is often stretching parts of you that have been under-used. Maybe it is your patience. Maybe it is your communication. Maybe it is your courage to say no. Without pressure, those areas would remain dormant. With pressure, they awaken. There was a small business owner I once heard about who nearly lost everything during an economic downturn. Sales dropped, bills piled up, employees looked to him for answers. He felt like he was drowning. But instead of shutting down immediately, he began learning new marketing skills, restructuring his services, and building partnerships. It was not easy. He made mistakes. He faced rejection. But the crisis forced him to become more creative, more adaptable, more decisive. When the economy recovered, his business was stronger than before. The pressure that threatened to close his doors ended up expanding his vision. Without that season, he might have remained comfortable, but limited. You often think your purpose will come with ease, but purpose carries weight. Leadership carries weight. Influence carries weight. If you cannot handle small pressure now, larger responsibilities later would break you. I remember a teacher who was promoted to principal of a struggling school. The pressure was intense. Parents complained. Budgets were tight. Staff morale was low. She questioned whether she had made the right choice. But through that season, she learned to listen deeply, to make firm decisions, to stay calm in chaos. Years later, she was invited to lead an entire district. She admitted that without the early pressure, she would have collapsed under the bigger role. The early challenges were training grounds. Pressure also teaches you humility. When everything is easy, you can become careless. You can assume success is guaranteed. But when life becomes demanding, you learn respect for the process. You learn to prepare. You learn to ask for help. You learn that strength is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about standing steady even when it is not. A father working 2 jobs to support his family may feel immense pressure. But through that strain, he discovers endurance he never knew he had. His children may one day look back and realize that the pressure he endured built the foundation of their stability. Sometimes you wish the pressure would disappear. You pray for lighter days, fewer responsibilities, simpler choices. And there is nothing wrong with desiring peace. But do not mistake pressure for punishment. It is often evidence that you are stepping into a larger version of yourself. The discomfort is not random. It is connected to the future you are growing into. Just as a bridge must be tested to ensure it can carry weight, your character must be tested before it carries influence, success, or impact. The weight you feel today may be building the capacity you will rely on tomorrow. The sixth key point is your breakdown is often your breakthrough. There are moments in life when everything feels like it is falling apart at the same time. Plans collapse, relationships crack, confidence drains. You wake up one morning and realize you don't recognize the person in the mirror. That moment feels like failure. It feels like weakness. You might even feel embarrassed that you couldn't hold it together. But what if falling apart is not the end of your strength? What if it is the beginning of your honesty? A breakdown strips away the version of you that was pretending, performing, pleasing. When the mask drops, the real work can finally begin. Most people fear breaking because they associate it with loss of control. And yes, there is discomfort in it. A businessman once shared how his company collapsed after years of steady growth. He had built his identity around being successful. When the business failed, he felt like he failed as a person. For months, he avoided social gatherings. He avoided conversations. But during that quiet season, he started questioning why his self-worth was tied to revenue. He began reading, reflecting, reconnecting with his family. He later said, "Losing the company was painful, but it forced me to rebuild myself without titles." His breakdown did not ruin him. It rebuilt him on stronger ground. Sometimes a breakdown exposes the cracks that were already there. You may have been overworking, ignoring your health, suppressing emotions, saying yes when you meant no. From the outside you look stable. Inside you were stretched thin. Then one event pushes you over the edge and you think that event caused everything. But often, it only revealed what had been building quietly. Like a dam with small fractures, it may stand for years. One day it bursts, not because of a single drop of water, but because pressure was ignored for too long. The breakdown is not the enemy, it is the alarm bell. I remember hearing about a young woman who had what many would call a perfect life. Good job, stable relationship, supportive friends. Yet she felt empty. She kept pushing through her days, smiling when needed. One evening, she had what she described as an emotional collapse. Tears she had held back for years came pouring out. She felt ashamed of her own sadness because she believed she had no reason to feel that way. But that breakdown forced her to ask deeper questions. What did she truly want? What parts of her had been silenced? Over time, she changed careers, started therapy, and began living more honestly. The breakdown was not weakness. It was awakening. There is something powerful about reaching a point where you admit, "This is not working." That sentence can feel terrifying because it means change is required, but it also creates space. When something breaks, you can either try to tape it back together exactly as it was, or you can rebuild it differently. A man stuck in a career he disliked once ignored every sign of dissatisfaction. Then he was laid off unexpectedly. He described the first weeks as dark and uncertain. Yet in that uncertainty, he realized he had been living someone else's version of success. He began learning a new skill, slowly shifting directions. Years later, he said losing that job was the most honest moment of his life. Breakdowns humble you, but they also make you more compassionate. When you have felt lost, you understand others who feel lost. When you have faced failure, you stop judging others for theirs. A leader who has experienced personal struggle often becomes more patient, more empathetic, more grounded. Pain deepens perspective. It softens harsh edges. It teaches you that strength is not about never falling. It is about rising with greater awareness. The version of you that emerges after hardship often carries wisdom that comfort could never teach. You may still be in the middle of your breakdown right now. You may feel confused, uncertain, questioning everything. And that is uncomfortable. But do not rush to label this season as defeat. Sometimes life shakes your foundation because it needs to rebuild it stronger. Sometimes your plans collapse because they were too small for who you are becoming. The pieces scattered on the floor may not fit the same way again, and that can be frightening. Yet within that mess is possibility. When everything familiar falls away, you have the rare opportunity to choose again, to think again, to become again in a way that aligns more deeply with your truth. The SEVNTH key point is faith is trust without evidence. Faith begins where certainty ends. It is easy to believe when results are visible, when progress is measurable, when applause confirms you are on the right path. But faith is different. Faith asks you to keep walking when the road bends out of sight. It asks you to plant seeds without standing over the soil demanding proof. There was a man who spent years building a small workshop in his garage, crafting furniture by hand. Orders were slow. Some months, none came at all. Friends advised him to quit and find something more stable. Yet every morning, he showed up, sanded wood, refined his craft. He believed in the work before the market did. That belief, without evidence, kept his hands steady when doubt tried to make them shake. Faith is not blind optimism. It is disciplined commitment. It is choosing action even when emotions fluctuate. A young student once failed an important exam that determined entry into a competitive program. She felt embarrassed and questioned her intelligence. But instead of labeling herself as incapable, she studied again, adjusted her strategy, and retook the test months later. During that waiting period, there were no guarantees, no promises that the outcome would change. What she had was faith in her effort. Faith that improvement would eventually reflect in results. She did not have evidence at first. She had conviction. You often confuse faith with comfort. But real faith is uncomfortable. It stretches you beyond what you can calculate. It forces you to release control over outcomes while still taking responsibility for effort. Imagine learning to swim. The first time you step into deep water, your body wants to panic. You cannot see the bottom. You cannot stand firmly. Faith is trusting that your practice, your training, your preparation will hold you afloat, even when your feet cannot touch the ground. It does not remove fear. It teaches you to move through it. Faith also protects your peace in seasons of uncertainty. When life does not give you clear answers, your mind tries to fill the gaps with worst case scenarios. You assume delays mean failure. You assume silence means rejection. Faith interrupts that spiral. It says, I may not understand this now, but that does not mean it is against me. I once heard about a couple who tried for years to start a family. There were disappointments, medical challenges, unanswered questions. Many nights were filled with frustration. Yet they continued to support each other, to hope, to live fully instead of freezing in sorrow. Their faith was not denial of reality. It was refusal to let uncertainty steal their ability to move forward. There is also faith in your own growth. Sometimes you doubt whether you are capable of becoming who you need to be. You look at the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and it feels wide, but faith whispers that the gap can be crossed step by step. A man who once struggled with addiction shared how recovery began not with certainty of success, but with a small decision each day to try again. He did not have evidence he would remain sober long term. He had belief in the process of daily commitment. Years later, he realized that faith was not about predicting the future. It was about choosing the next right action without proof of final victory. Faith changes how you interpret silence. When nothing seems to move, you can either assume stagnation or trust preparation. A farmer plants seeds and waits through weeks when the field looks unchanged. He does not dig them up every morning to check if they are growing. He waters, he protects, he waits. Faith allows you to do the same with your goals. Instead of demanding instant results, you continue refining your skills, building relationships, strengthening character. You understand that unseen progress is still progress. And in the quiet moments when doubt tries to convince you that you are wasting your time, faith becomes a steady voice. It reminds you that not everything valuable can be measured immediately. That some chapters require endurance before clarity. That your journey is not random, even when it feels unpredictable. Faith is waking up and showing up without applause. It is believing that your consistent effort, your integrity, your patience are weaving something meaningful beyond what you can currently see. It is standing in uncertainty, with awe, surrendering to it, trusting that even without visible proof, your steps are not empty and your path is not accidental. There will always be moments when you question the pace of your life. Moments when you look at the clock, at the calendar, at other people's progress, and feel a quiet pressure rising inside you. But now you understand something deeper. Not everything that pauses you is pushing you back. Not everything that breaks you is meant to end you. Not everything that closes is meant to confine you. Your life is not a race against someone else's highlight reel. It is a steady unfolding. Some seasons will be loud and visible. Others will be quiet and invisible. Some doors will open easily. Others will shut without explanation. There will be pressure that stretches you, rejection that redirects you, and days when faith feels like the only thing you have left. And yet, through all of it, something consistent remains. You are being shaped. Every delay has been building capacity. Every invisible season has been strengthening roots. Every comparison has been inviting you back to your own path. Every rejection has been adjusting your direction. Every pressure has been increasing your endurance. Every breakdown has been revealing a truer version of you. Every act of faith has been training you to walk without needing constant proof. When you step back into your life after this moment, the circumstances may look the same. The timeline may not suddenly speed up. The answers may not all appear at once. But you will carry something different inside you, a steadiness, a quiet confidence, a deeper trust that your journey does not need to look like anyone else's to be meaningful. You don't have to rush what is still forming. You don't have to force what is not ready. You don't have to shrink because someone else seems ahead. Your responsibility is simple, but not easy. Keep becoming. Keep showing up. Keep refining who you are even when no one applauds it. Life is not ignoring you. It is preparing you, not punishing you, positioning you, not withholding from you, working within you. And when the next delay comes, when the next challenge appears, when the next unanswered question lingers in your mind, you will not panic the way you once did. You will breathe. You will remember that growth is often silent, that redirection can feel like rejection, that strength is built under weight, and that faith does not require visible evidence to remain real. There is a quiet power in trusting the timing of your own life. It allows you to move forward without hurry and without fear. It allows you to rest in the understanding that who you are becoming is more important than how fast you are arriving. So walk back into your days with patience in your heart and steadiness in your steps. What is meant for you is not fragile. What is aligned with you will not disappear because it took longer. And the person you are growing into, through every delay, every pressure, every unseen season, is already stronger than you think.